Apparently, Stephan made a trip down to Northport last night. Or this morning, I should say. I have no idea.
So my SUV just said it's 26 degrees outside when I just came from the gym. Thankfully, it's nice and toasty inside, and I'm still researching Stephan Sterns, the case, and putting in so many FOIAs, trying to get so much missing information. But until then, I want to go over this bankruptcy I found. It's a 56-page Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and Stephan Sterns is mentioned. The bankruptcy belongs to his parents, Chris and Deborah Sterns. They do say at one point, Stephan Sterns' son, personal property and miscellaneous items are at the debtors' residence. That would be Chris and Deborah Sterns' residence. So I want to talk about the entire burden that Stephan has been on his parents. I've gone through a couple more interviews, several more, especially the ones with Chris Sterns. When he's by himself, when he doesn't know he's being recorded by police, I find that he sounds the most direct and the most honest at those points. So let's talk about their bankruptcies. I will link to the 56-page bankruptcy below. But I want to talk about the burden, maybe the moral bankruptcy of Stephan Sterns, obviously, and relate that all to his parents' bankruptcy and everything he's put them through over the years. Everything his dad has admitted to. Now, we've learned how much of a burden Stephan was to his parents in recent jail phone calls. We've gotten one so far. There's more that should be on the way, I hope. And we've heard his parents talk about him in interviews. It seems this is a pattern that had endured for years, and Stephan was even mentioned in one of his parents' bankruptcy filings in 2010, but he wasn't mentioned as a dependent. But Stephan's actions all along through his teenage years and beyond obviously have had an impact on his parents. Starting even 20 years ago from what I can find in the court system, when Stephan was just an 18-year-old driver in 2004, he began racking up a bunch of civil traffic infractions. His dad is going to talk about the way Stephan wrecked a car during one of these times and the way he spoke to the highway patrol officer without much respect. But the Orange County Clerk's website in Florida is filled with a bunch of State of Florida versus Stephan M. Sterns, his middle name is Michael, or you see State of Florida versus Stephan Michael Sterns, or you even can find State of Florida versus Stephen Michael Sterns, where they've obviously misspelled Stephan's name because the addresses still relate to him. They are payable infractions for unlawful speeding and other violations, which led to Stephan's driver's license being suspended at one point. I'm not sure if this is the trouble with the law that Stephan himself had referenced in one of his interviews with police, but we do see on September 12th, 2013, a payment from Christopher Walker Sterns, that's Stephan's dad, for $254. It was made for one of Stephan's unlawful speeding infractions. He has a bunch, and I only checked like 1 or 2 counties. I don't even know if he has a bunch in other states or other counties, but his dad was still paying for his infractions 11 years ago in 2013. Now, 11 years ago, Stephan was around 26 years of age, but his dependence, his neediness, his financial burden, likely emotional burden he placed on his parents didn't go anywhere. Now, I'm not saying that Stephan is responsible for his parents' bankruptcy, but I do want to recognize the burden such a troubled man, and this is giving him no excuses for his actions, but what a burden he was to his parents. Now, in the meantime, while Stephan was racking up all these civil traffic infractions, Jennifer, from 2006 through 2008, Jennifer Soto was picking up her own civil traffic infractions with 3 State of Florida versus Jennifer Lisette Soto cases over the years. But that would be nearly a full decade before Jennifer met Stephan. And I don't know, maybe Jennifer was paying her own tickets. Stephan, it appeared, paid a lot of his tickets as well. At least in the court system, it shows he paid them, but we don't know if he got that money from mom and dad. Now, it's interesting to see what Stephan was doing over the years via social media. In 2009, April 21st, 2009 to be exact, Stephan was bragging about his head still spinning from last night's shenanigans, chugging a couple of vitamin waters only to go out and do it again. Just another day in paradise. So this is 2009. This is when he was around 23 years old. And that very next year, his parents were preparing and filing their second bankruptcy filing. Now, the first bankruptcy filing I found for Chris and Deborah Sterns was way back in 1990. This is before Stephan even turned 4 years old. There's not much data on that filing. I can't download the documents. I can't find them. I wanted to see Stephan's name listed, and maybe they're out there somewhere. I just didn't find them. That bankruptcy was discharged by August 1st, 1990. It's critical to note that a few years after that first bankruptcy, that's when Stephan was reportedly run over twice by a truck. According to his parents, and Chris Sterns says it in an interview, a guy walked out, said hello to the kids, a group of kids, Stephan was one of them, and ran over him with a truck and backed back over him. I wonder what happened there. Now, according to his parents, that left Stephan with a TBI, a traumatic brain injury. I'm sure that'll be the crux, the linchpin, the whole point of his defense. If Stephan goes ahead with this whole horrible case and trial and doesn't plead guilty, I'm sure they're going to try and find everything to pin it on this TBI. And I, like a lot of other people, are like, sure, blame it on a TBI. Having a TBI doesn't make you evil. But I wanted to do my due diligence, and I did Google it. I was like, can TBIs cause a person to be evil? Can they cause sexual deviancy? According to Google, it does say, yes, a traumatic brain injury can potentially cause sexual deviancy, as damage to specific brain regions, particularly the frontal lobes, can affect judgment, impulse control, and moral reasoning, leading to inappropriate sexual behaviors or a lack of inhibition in expressing urges. However, this is not a universal outcome, and many people with TBI do not experience changes in sexual behavior. Of course, I had to consider that. I always think if I'm a member of a jury and we're being presented certain evidence and certain experts are weighing in about TBIs, I would have to listen and consider it. But would that make me, vote not guilty against a guy like Stephan? Probably not. So that's just setting the stage a little bit. We've talked more about his parents would be divorced, and that didn't happen, and all that stuff. You can look back at all the links in the podcast below to find all that stuff. That's the backstory. Well, by 2010, so that's 14 years ago, when Stephan technically was turning 24 years old that year, his parents, Chris and Deborah Sterns, filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy again. The date filed was April Fool's Day, April 1st, 2010. The date terminated was July 26, 2010. So I was looking to see if there was any narratives. Would they claim Stephan still as a dependent, even though he was 24? I think he was still very dependent on his parents. His dad is even going to talk about how lazy Stephan was during 2010.
I'm just so fed up with him at this point. And obviously there's something here because I've been here almost 6 hours. They've been here 6 hours. So something's going on. Look, he spent a lifetime lying to us.
Okay.
And it's just never gotten better. And he fed me some bullshit the other day. And before I left the house the other night, I turned to my wife and I said, do we really know Stephan? Can we honestly say we really know?
Yeah.
And she got really kind of defensive a little bit. I said, I'm not saying that he did something, but can we honestly say we really know him? He suffers from sleep apnea.
Was he able to complete school, no problem?
Well, depends on who completed it. His mother, who we did online schooling, and she ended up doing most of the work for him.
Did he ever go to college?
No.
What did he do for work?
I've had him work with me in a variety of ways. When we were here in Orlando from 2010 to 2013, I did these, what they call BPOs. They're kind of like appraisals. I did 15,000 of them, and I had him and his friends go out and take these photos. And it was always a challenge to get his ass out of bed and go to work. No motivation. The more you do, the more you make. Yeah. No motivation there.
Well, in the bankruptcy filing, it says property held for another person. List all the property owned by another person that the debtor holds or controls. And of course, they listed Stephan Sterns' son, personal property, and miscellaneous items in debtors' residence. Now, of course, it's normal for a 20-something-year-old, if they've moved out or even if they haven't, to have a bunch of stuff over their parents' house. Makes sense. But Stephan was not some normal 24-year-old. I don't know where he was living, but his stuff would continue to follow them throughout their entire lives. His predilections, unfortunately, would have a negative impact on his parents, especially when Stephan would move about 20 miles away from this townhome that's listed in Windermere, Florida, in the bankruptcy filings, when he would move away to the townhome he shared with Jennifer and Madeline Soto, whose death he's been accused of being responsible for, along with many other horrible crimes. I don't know where Stephan was living then in 2010, but his parents do have a Windermere address listed, a nice little condo townhome worth about $365,000 now. But ironically, back in the 2010 bankruptcy filing, the Sterns listed no dependents. So they left Stephan's name off the section of that filing. Even though in interviews with Chris, they tell a much different story about how much Stephan still relied on them, just how lazy he was, how many opportunities his dad kept trying to present to Stephan over the years. So back then in 2010, Chris listed his occupation as a self-employed real estate broker, and Deborah was listed as a homemaker. It listed her as disabled since 1990. We've heard her talk about her health issues, and it showed Deborah collecting disability payments of $1,400 per month. If you add that $1,400 to Chris's net monthly income of $3,000 at the time, it's no wonder that couple wasn't, doing very well off of a combined $4,400 monthly income. It wasn't cutting it. Now, we know they breed poodles. If you download the docs and you look and you see all the details, you will see just small amounts expenses for dogs and stuff. So I don't know how much those expenses were playing into their money problems or just the real estate market with its ups and downs. Either way, their total liabilities were nearly $84,000 and their total assets were only around $6,500 at that time. So there's a long history. There's so much information that I won't bore you with the details. Those who like to read the details can get all into the PDF if they want. There is a section about national standards healthcare. They entered in line A1 below the amount from the IRS national standards for out-of-pocket healthcare for persons under 65. So at that point, they listed only 2 members of the household under 65 years of age. So it appears, for all intents and purposes, Stephan did not live with them at that point. Perhaps this is when he was off living with roommates or something, the ones we've heard interviewed. But when Chris Sterns was interviewed alone in secret recordings on Wednesday, February 28th, this was the night that Stephan was arrested. We have a couple of interviews. I just pulled out some interesting excerpts from before Stephan was arrested, before Chris knew, and after. So Chris felt like he was speaking more cop to cop, since Chris was a former police officer. And he's displaying his true feelings of ire, not necessarily hate, but just frustration with his son. So Chris was talking to the cops about only making about $800 per month as a cop way back when. And then he began working for Campbell's Soup because he saw another guy and he liked whatever this other guy was doing. Maybe he was a sales guy or whatever, or maybe he was a realtor. He might have been sales, but he saw the other guy just talking on the phone, making dinner reservations, making this and that. He wanted that kind of job. Apparently, whenever Chris got into the real estate business, it was a bunch of up and downs too. In 2008, he listed an income of only $5,000. In 2009, it was nearly $30,000. But as of the April 1st, 2010 bankruptcy filing, only $4,000 was listed for those first, 3 months of earnings? Chris gives us insight into what Stephan was doing around this time when his parents were filing bankruptcy and Stephan was 24 years old. Was he helping his parents? No, he sounds like a bigger burden to his parents. Chris is admitting, I'm just so fed up with him at this point. Look, he spent a lifetime of lying to us, and it's just never gotten better. Imagine saying that about your nearly 40-year-old son, who you've been trying to help for 4 decades. His mother, Chris said, we did online school, and she ended up doing most of the work for him. Now, that's out of Chris Sterns' own mouth. By the time, Chris realized he was being surreptitiously recorded, and later interviews come out. Chris is kind of eating crow. You can tell he probably got in trouble. Probably got a little nagged by Deborah, because Deborah's like, Stephan's the smartest. Oh, he's the best, and I homeschooled him and this and that and this, and he speaks all these languages and blah blah blah, like a mother's love. Okay, you can't help it. You don't want to say your boy is a deviant. I guess no mother would want to ever admit that, but it comes to a point where you have to face facts. You have to look at the victim in the case and pray for justice. Justice more than, I guess, love or delusion for your own son. Easier said than done. But this is when Chris Sterns did other interviews and saying, praised his wife for how much she tried to educate their son and all that. And he didn't admit any longer that Deb did most of the work for Sterns. But I wonder if that's really true. Did Deborah do most of the work for Stephan? He didn't go on to college. He was homeschooled, and whatever test he had to do, whatever curriculum they make you do, did Deborah complete a lot of that work for Stephan because he didn't want to? Perhaps. That's what Chris is saying out of his own mouth. But Chris goes on to say, we were here in Orlando from 2010 to 2013. So this is right when the start of the bankruptcy filing. They're filed for bankruptcy. You know how you kind of get a fresh start, I guess, after you file. It's almost like the slate is wiped clean. But Chris is explaining, look, he has all these houses. He had Stephan and his friends go out and take these photos. He has 15,000 photos, which is kind of scary when you start talking about photos and Stephan, but these are photos of homes. You can imagine a realtor, this is his dad, trying to get up and running from the bankruptcy and just trying to start anew. There are 15,000 photos that Stephan could have taken. Now, I believe Stephan's friend talked about this, the same thing that his dad was talking about. There was a different interview, and Stephan's friend talked about how the friend ran laps around Stephan, basically. He would get up early. I can't remember how much money they were making. $10, $50 per house, something like that. I think it's over on Gray Hughes Investigates, if I'm not mistaken. I've listened to so many interviews. Stephan's friend was on it. He was obviously a go-getter. He was taking advantage of the opportunity, like most of us would. He was up early, zipping around town, driving around, taking photos of all these homes like, Chris Sterns was hiring them to do, help in the business. I would have been all over that, gives you something to do, helps you earn an income. It helps your parents. This would have been helping his dad's business. But just like Stephan's friend said, by the time he came home, Stephan would still be in bed, and his friend has already been up and at him and taking photos and everything. So no matter what Chris Sterns says about some of Stephan's friends being layabouts and druggies and whatever, and not the type that he associated with when, he was growing up, a better class of people or whatever, Chris did admit it was very difficult to motivate his son. So in this interview, talking about that time period where Stephan could have been out there helping his dad, taking tons of photos, Chris said it was always a challenge to get his ass out of bed and go to work. No motivation. The more you do, the more you make. No motivation.
He really didn't do much. He worked at Quiznos for a while. That didn't last long until he wrecked his car. So he's been living with us and me trying to get him out of the house to go work. We came down to Northport. He stayed there with Jen. So while we were down there until December of last year, he lived with Jen. And then I was supporting him in Orlando, and I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. You got to come back.
Yeah.
And I was trying to create an opportunity for him down there, but that didn't materialize. Then I'm trying to get his ass out to get a job at Lowe's or Home Depot or something. No, she's been sorting out his bedroom because he lives like a fucking pig.
He really didn't do much, Chris said. He worked at Quiznos for a while, so that's like a sandwich shop. That didn't last long till he wrecked his car. So Stephan, a bunch of different speeding tickets, he's wrecking his car. And at one point I remember he had a really cute car. I want to say a yellow type sports car. His parents obviously just bought for him, I'm sure, because he couldn't afford it, I'm sure. Now, this bankruptcy filing does list a new business, just opened in 2010, so Chris Sterns was 100% owner to some of these businesses. That business was called Market America Realty and Investments, LLC. It was out of Windermere. It was a real estate business that had only generated $100 at the time of the filing. Now, I couldn't help compare Stephan's lack of help towards his dad to a recent experience I had with my fence guy. So my neighbor's got a gorgeous fence. Oh my goodness, $7,000, beautiful wood and everything. We just needed a couple panels. Our privacy fence was falling down. So I'm like, I'm using the same guys my neighbor used. They did a great job. So we hired this company to just do a couple panels, tear down the old one, put up the new. Well, the guy who showed up, maybe he was in his 50s, had just come from Florida, golfing, all tan and everything. We get to talking, and I naturally assumed this man started his own fence company, you know? No, the guy said, actually, it was my son who started this fence company, and he hired me, basically. Just to show you what a blessing some sons, some children, some adult children can be to their own parents. This guy's son started a fence company. They have a lot of business. It was so successful. You know, he has his high school friends working with him. He even hired his dad away from whatever job his dad was doing, and now his dad works with his son. Beautiful, wonderful local fence company. That's what Sterns could have been to his parents, with Chris saying, look, I need 15,000 photos of these houses taken, and this again is 2010. What, YouTube was only about 5 years old at that point. If Stephan had been on it, if he had been using his skills, any techie skills, any nerd-like skills, he could have been on it. He could have been like, Dad, yes, I'm going to help you blow up this realty company. I'm going to show you the tricks of the trade. Instead of so focused on Warhammer and Tamagotchis and all that stuff, he could have really helped his dad turn this into a booming business. But no, now in 2024, being interviewed, Chris Sterns says that Stephan has been living with them. You know, it's been Chris, probably Deborah too, just trying to get Stephan out of the house to go to work. Chris explains till December of last year, he lived with Jen. So Stephan lived with Jen until December of 2023. Chris says, I was supporting him in Orlando, and I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. You got to come back. So that's the real reason. You know, Chris is saying, I was done. This nearly 40-year-old man, I was done shelling out the funds for him. And of course, it's easier, I'm sure, when you're making money hand over foot, maybe and you're younger or whatever. And Chris might not have minded supporting Stephan as much. I don't know, I'm just speculating. He didn't say this. But when money gets tight and then someone's still trying to squeeze you, you know, you can't get blood out of a turnip, and you're still just trying to squeeze you for money. This is a man who's nearly 40, still trying to take advantage of his parents, and maybe they feel some guilt because of whatever happened to him as a little boy. Chris goes into the notion that Stephan did experience separation anxiety for a while after that car accident where, you know, the truck ran over him or whatever. He didn't want to sleep alone. Chris put his foot down after a while and said, this is ridiculous. You know, you got to sleep in your own bed. You know, he's more of a dad. He's more like, you know, good cop, bad cop. The mom is usually like, oh, my baby. And he's like, bad cop, look, this ends here. It's usually a good balance. But Chris kept trying. He's trying to turn Stephan into a man with some kind of work ethic. And I don't blame him. Chris said, and I was trying to create an opportunity for him down in Orlando, but that didn't materialize. Then I'm trying to get his ass out to get a job at Lowe's or Home Depot or something. So when Jennifer says she broke up with Sterns, she broke up with Stephan just because she was finally tired of him. Was that really true, or she was just tired of, okay, the gravy train has stopped. His dad isn't going to be paying, $600 a month or whatever it was for rent, so why do I need Stephan here? So Jen is making it sound like she was asking Stephan to leave. Chris, and he's more believable, it sounds like Chris is saying, look, Stephan, I'm done. You come back to Orlando. And he couldn't even get a job at Lowe's or Home Depot or something and keep a job is what it was. It reminds me of Croy Bierman and Kim Zolciak. I should still have body cam coming for that couple. But Croy Bierman was this big football player, and then he became this big reality star. And now he's working at some type of firm. I forget what they call it. Maybe a construction company, whatever it is. It's good, honest work. If a guy like Croy Bierman, who's used to the spotlight in these high positions and millions of dollars in his career can get a job, in a regular company, why couldn't Sterns? Chris even told the cops that his wife had been sorting out Stephan's bedroom because he lives like an effing pig. When you think about it I still have to keep telling myself they're talking about a nearly 40-year-old man. His mommy is still sorting out his bedroom, oh my goodness, because he lives like a pig. He comes down to Orlando, out of Kissimmee, away from Jen and Maddie's condo. I have many thoughts about this. And he's like living like a little pig, like a teenager or something in his parents' home.
Right around the house yelling her name. And just, that motherfucker, you know what? You know what stopped him from getting in the house? He didn't have a garage door opener. The front door lock is not working well.
Yep.
And I had put the lock on the slider.
Okay.
He couldn't get in.
All right. So I'm with the detectives, and they're sending Northport police over to do a check to make sure that she isn't there. Okay. So you may want to alert the dogs. They're really friendly.
I've got their food. I'm fixing to feed them.
Okay.
Just tell them it'll get noisy, okay?
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go.
They're good guys. I've been landline with them.
Yeah.
If there are any issues, give me a call.
All right. All right, fine. I moved them back down from Kissimmee in December
Okay.
to try to get him started on another career opportunity.
Okay.
Didn't materialize, so trying to work on some other things. So he visited them. He lied to me about this. He visited them maybe 6 weeks ago, maybe a month ago.
Visited who? I'm sorry.
Jen.
Okay.
And I'm going to Frank's house, and I need a little extra cash. Okay, when are you going to be back? I'll be back later tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So I get an alert that a toll booth truck. On E-Pass, I get an alert. I go, motherfucker. Call him up and say, how's Kissimmee?
Yeah.
So he lied to me about what he was doing.
Yeah.
But he was in Orlando until 3 o'clock, maybe Sunday, and then he left because I told him he had to take care of his room, clean the mess out of there before he could go.
Yeah.
So he did that, and he got up there at 6:30 or so. He actually went in December for Christmas time, now that I think about it, because he was not included in the family outing, but he was there. So then he made this faux trip there, and then he made this, so 3 times. He's been there 3 times.
Okay. And she stays at that apartment in Kissimmee. Has she been staying there?
And he rented, and they which I ended up having to pay.
Renting a room within the same apartment?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Jen's father rents the rooms out.
And does Jen's father live there? Or does he lease the apartment and then sublease the rooms inside?
Well, he owns the townhouse and he rents out the rooms and charges his daughter rent.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm pissed that he's done this to us, done this to himself, done this to us and somebody else.
It's not an unreasonable thought. Not unreasonable at all.
I had no idea of the issue and what he may be capable of doing here, and it's just like it's a revelation.
Yeah.
I've always told him to respect law enforcement, respect the law, but it appears that he's decided to live a different lifestyle. I mean, one time he got pulled over by the highway patrol. I could hear him yelling at the highway patrol, and
Right.
disrespect.
Yeah.
Don't do that. I said, they'll haul your butt up from Winter Garden to Mount Dora, and that's a long way to go. And I said, you don't want to upset that guy. The guy was very, very professional. Apparently, he was driving on maybe a registration issue or something, so I had to go up and get him because they wouldn't let him drive the car. But it's like they were saying, you don't fool with the IRS or the Lone Ranger, and you don't fuck with the highway patrol. They're not nice guys.
At a certain point, Chris calls Deb, and at one point he puts her on the speaker because she's getting emotional. You can hear her crying. She says, outside yelling Maddie's name, you can just hear her say, or I think they redacted at that point, but she says, that mother effer, you know what stopped him from getting in the house? He didn't have a garage door opener. The front door lock is not working well, and I had put the lock on the slider and he couldn't get in. So that was Deb talking to Chris and saying, Stephan probably tried to get in here. They told her he was down in Northport that Wednesday morning. They didn't know it. She's saying what prevented him from coming in were he didn't have a garage door opener, thank God, and the front door lock is not working well, and she had locked the slider. So I'm glad, because even though later Stephan is going to tell his dad, oh, I was trying to come down there to get the weapons and off myself or whatever, I don't know if that's really true. It was probably another bid for sympathy out of his poor, beleaguered parents. I think he was trying to get in there, hit the Wi-Fi, get logged into accounts and destroy more evidence. I think he's already potentially destroyed one hard drive, but it didn't work. Now this is what's weird. Chris Sterns says that Stephan lied to him about this. He visited Jen and Maddie about 6 weeks, maybe a month ago. Remember, this interview is taking place February 28th. So he lied to his own dad about a month prior. So beginning of February, mid-January, whatever. And he says, oh, I'm going to Frank's house. Stephan told his dad, oh, I'm going over to Frank's house. But then a toll booth charge pops up because, of course, Stephan can't be independent and pay his own, we call it Easy Pass up here, whatever you call it down in Florida. He can't pay his own Easy Pass or his own toll. No, the toll booth charge pops up on his dad's account, obviously. So he lied to him. Chris says he lied to me about what he was doing. And I can't get over that. It's amazing to me that this man, why is he sneaking and lying to his parents about going to Frank's house as opposed to going up to see Jennifer and Maddie? Something's confusing going on. It wasn't just about Chris not wanting to pay rent, I guess, anymore for Stephan, but Stephan felt for some reason he had to sneak up there to see Jen and Maddie and not tell his parents. Why? That part is weird to me too. Maybe because of just the expenditures. I'm not saying they knew anything more was going on. I mean, they seemed pretty flabbergasted, at least Chris did, when he found out Stephan was arrested and for what charges against which victim. Chris assumed it would have been against Jennifer and not Maddie. Another interesting thing Chris says is that Stephan was in Orlando until about 3 o'clock maybe that Sunday, February 25th. That's the day of Maddie's birthday party. And then he left Orlando because I told him he had to take care of his room, clean the mess out of there before he could go. So he did that. He got up there. Chris believes Stephan got up there to Kissimmee maybe around 6:30ish. But, let Jennifer tell it. She didn't really know. It was late. So that's why all this confusion happened. His parents assumed he was up in Kissimmee around 6:30 p.m. that Sunday. But Stephan and Jen are saying he got up there later. We don't really know what time he got there. But another thing that's so babyish, like Chris has to tell, once again, this nearly 40-year-old man, he has to take care of his room and clean the mess out of there before you can go. It's really like talking to a teenager. You want to go to the party? You got to clean your room first. So why was Sterns lying to his parents about going to see Jennifer? So Chris Sterns says Stephan actually went in December for Christmas because he was not included in the family outing, but he was there. So Jen wanted Stephan around. They might claim Maddie wanted him around too. But Jennifer's family is already like, look, we don't want you around. Rightfully so, I don't blame them. And Chris also says, which I ended up having to pay, he must have paid for Stephan's jaunt up to Kissimmee in December for Christmas, and maybe that's why Stephan sneaked up there, sometime in February, January, whenever he went again, because he didn't want his mommy and daddy to know he was sneaking up there and spending more money to see Jennifer and Maddie, I guess. So Chris does say maybe Stephan had been back up to Kissimmee around 3 times since they had moved him out. So from December to February, that last fatal trip, maybe 3 times Stephan had sneaked up there. Well, one time he didn't sneak, and then there was what did Chris call it, like a non-trip, the faux trip he called it. And then another time, so 3 times Stephan was going back up there. Unfortunately, we know it was to see Maddie. So my question is, will Chris and Deborah Sterns have to file bankruptcy a third time due to supporting their son? I don't know why it happened the first time. The second time, real estate, I'm sure Stephan was no help as a 24-year-old partier, not really helping his parents. Now, a third time, will they have to file bankruptcy due to supporting this 38-year-old man? So imagine when he was 37, before he turned 38 in April, he was this 37-year-old man still giving his parents problems instead of presenting them with, like a lot of men right now in their late 30s, presenting their parents with a wonderful career, autonomous, maybe buying their parents presents, maybe helping their parents out as their parents get older. You expect the tables to turn a little bit. That's what I read today. I'm trying to remember what book I'm in. Oh, I'm in Timothy, one of the letters to Timothy, and it talked about compensating your parents, like, I guess especially if you have lovely parents who took great care of you. Sounds like they took pretty good care of him, compensating them for what they've done. It comes a time where your parents get older, you want to start taking care of them or just contributing to them. So while many other men are out there his age, Stephan's age, presenting their parents with a wonderful career, their autonomy, a stable marriage, bringing home a lovely wife, bringing their parents a lovely daughter-in-law at that point, beautiful grandchildren and everything. Stephan, nearly 40 years into his life, he's still taking all he could get from his parents and from the world. He took Maddie away. He's accused of taking Maddie away. And even after going to jail and facing the charges of taking Maddie away, he's still asking for money to be put on his books and for literal books to be sent to him and candies and all money on the books, asking his lawyer for yellow paper on which to write a poem to Maddie, whom he took away. When will this man stop being so needy and morally bankrupt?
If you wouldn't mind putting a little more money in my commissary as well.
All right, I can't do much stuff because we are really, when I say dead ass broke, I mean dead ass broke, but I'll do what I can.
Okay, I appreciate it.
That could change, but right now, for the next 30 days, we are definitely in lockdown.
Yeah, I understand.
Now, remember in that jail phone call from May 13th, 2024, he waits till he hears like that 1-minute mark warning at the end before he whines out, oh, I think I just heard the 1 minute, and yeah, I'll sign whatever you need, because his dad was saying, look, you got to sign these papers so we can do something with your car or whatever. I'll sign whatever you need, and I'll call you again, but if you wouldn't mind putting a little more money in my commissary as well. Still begging his parents. This is when Chris is like, all right, I can't do much, Stephan, because we are really, and when I say dead ass broke, I mean dead ass broke. Stephan actually, for the first time, almost said thank you. I heard him little whiny mealy mouth say, I appreciate, and then he's interrupted. But Chris still is kind of hopeful. He's still like, that could change, but for the next 30 days, we are on lockdown. So he's telling him, look, I maybe have more opportunities, make more money in the future or whatever. But look, we are broke. And then even 2 months after that call, on July 16th, 2024, Chris Sterns is still even going to bat for Stephan. He obviously goes up there, visits the cops. He feels like mano a mano. He feels like they're on the same page, and they're still secretly recording him.
The date is July 16th, 2024. The time is 9:18 a.m. We're at the Kissimmee Police Department. It's myself, Detective Morris, Detective Smallwood. We're going to meet with Mr. Chris Sterns in the police department's lobby.
I'm surprised that Jen hasn't been arrested yet, because, we feel in our heart that she was there when the death occurred and was involved in the cover-up. She obviously lied to the sheriff's department in their statement as to, the disappearance of Jen, when that was all a ruse. Maddie was a ruse to begin with. Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious as to why nothing. Where is she? Is she still in the country? Is she in some institution?
I don't know. I know the state attorney's office has been in contact with her. Once my case packet is delivered to the state attorney's office, my involvement is pretty much done.
Yeah.
So, where she's at, no idea. Okay. But I know the state attorney is still in contact with her.
Okay. Well, all right. It's just surprising that somebody that was there during the death and probably responsible for it. Certainly participated and hasn't been arrested. One of the things that we have kind of speculated or come to the conclusion of is in talking to Stephan, and obviously he's not telling us much because he's under the instructions of his attorney to keep quiet about it, and obviously that's their defense. But he said something kind of odd that we have been, my wife and I have been kind of kicking back and forth, and he made a statement that said, "I didn't start it." And that kind of puzzled me as to, well, what do you mean I didn't start it? Getting to the chase, I think they were involved in some sort of criminal enterprise. I think those photos on his phone, and again, the day of his arrest, and Jennifer's demeanor, as I've shared with you, is just really out of context of what you would expect from a mother who just learned that her significant other. I think that is still a possibility of that occurring, but I don't know if she took a photo of the photos that she was shown, the images off of Stephan's phone, or maybe she showed me something she had on her phone, but the flashing back to that image, and again, it was something I didn't want to see, so I didn't want to spend a lot of time gazing at it, looking at it. Didn't want to see it to begin with, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. But the image that I recall seeing, which meant that...
So you're saying Jen showed you this picture?
Yeah, and I thought it was maybe she grabbed it. She said she was shown, they had a package, whoever it was showing the package.
That was me.
Okay. She said, well, I don't want to see all. But supposedly, again, her telling me this, that she looked at, am I imagining that?
I can tell you this, that Jennifer, unless she had, which I'll get that in a second, the pictures that were shown to Jennifer during the interview to identify Stephan, she wasn't able to take any photos of those pictures. Does that make sense?
All right.
Okay. So, and have you read my narrative yet for this?
No.
Okay, that's going to answer a lot of your questions. So I don't know if Stephan can get you.
Well, how would I get that?
I don't know if his attorney can give it to you, or if Stephan, I'm sure he already has it through discovery and stuff like that.
Well, didn't the state attorney release the investigative reports?
Everything should have been released.
Yeah,
because I know here,
because the news stations immediately put up their stories about it on their.
I know public records requests have been done here as well for the case.
Yeah.
So it's out there. And that's going to answer a lot of your questions. But as for a picture being on Jennifer's phone, we downloaded her phone just like we did Stephan's, and there is 0 images like that on her phone. So where you got this image, I don't know where that came from.
Maybe I'm just envisioning it or whatever. I don't know. But I think they were involved in some sort of criminal enterprise. Because there was money being spent, packages were arriving at our house on a frequent basis, and when I brought Stephan home from Kissimmee at the end of November, to my knowledge, he had no money. Because I provided a lot of financial support for him and told him, hey, time has run out, I can't do this anymore. Whatever you're doing at Disney is going to take way too many years to go through promotions and pay raises to where you could afford to support yourself. I mean, you need to be making 2.5 times what you're making,
right?
And you'll never get there. You need to find a career path, which is what I was trying to find for him. I was encouraged by his work ethics that he was demonstrating at Disney, which what precipitated me bringing him back. But since learned as early as the day he was arrested, because Jennifer said that he had called in quite a bit at Disney, which was kind of like his MO, and it really disappointed me to hear that. And when he came home, he fell into the same bullshit pattern that we have been struggling with for many years. and trying to get him out of bed and go out there and find a job and what have you. And then all this fell apart. But there was money. There was packages arriving on a constant basis. When I asked him about where the money was coming from, he said savings. Well, I can tell you that other than the inheritance he got from his father, which he blew through rather quickly, there was never been any savings. He never saved 2 nickels. So money had to be coming somewhere. But his comment about I didn't start it got us wondering that maybe he was caught up in a criminal enterprise with Jen, and Jennifer was. And I don't know if you can collaborate that or not, but I just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, I mean, without getting too much into my investigation in the narrative, it did not appear to be that way, that they were working together.
Okay.
Because I will tell you this, we have spent months, thousands of hours, literally going line by line through his phone and her phone, and there is nothing to suggest that theory, that they were working together.
Could they be working independent?
Well, Stephan was working independent.
He was.
I can tell you that, yes.
Okay, so he was involved in a criminal enterprise.
Well, I don't want to say criminal enterprise, but the stuff that was found on his phone pretty much painted the picture of the whole case.
Okay. More Maddie?
There was, the thumb drive that you provided.
Was okay, so there was stuff off of that.
There, I can tell you there was so identifying those individuals, it'd be almost nearly impossible.
30,000?
Yes, sir.
What about the hard drive?
The hard drive was not used when the forensics unit got it. I don't think it was used since like 2020 or something like that.
Well, why did he go to the extent of hiding the damn thing? Because like I said, he was on that computer Sunday morning, and then I assumed when I handed it over that it was...
So the desktop that you handed us,
yeah,
there was not a hard drive in it.
Right, and then that surprised me. And then when I went to move out of the storage unit, it was at a location at the back. And if you've seen photos, there was a rack of shelves. And
Yeah, I was there that night when we did this.
okay, so you could easily slide back to the rear of that, and from where it was, you could easily tuck in where I found the hard drive. You could have easily just placed it.
Right.
So I don't know if he.
But yeah,
did
there was no activity on the hard drive for years.
Huh.
So we don't know where the hard drive on the computer that he was using when you said you saw him using the computer, where that hard drive is.
Oh, this isn't the same hard drive? No. Oh.
Because if he was using it that morning,
Yeah.
we would have been able to tell through the forensics dump of it.
Right.
And no, it hasn't been used since, I guess, I want to say like 2020 maybe.
Okay, so it was an assumption on my part that was the same hard drive. But I don't know how he put that hard drive in it, and I don't know how he put that in there. So he must have just destroyed the thing.
Hey,
It would have made
Which we don't.
best sense to do that for sure, but too bad he wasn't smart enough about the phone. Not that I would be encouraging that, but still. The other interesting thing is, as you know, I came up early Wednesday morning, 2 o'clock, checked into the hotel, tucked Steph and Jen into their room and left 2:20, 2:30. I went to bed, and then with the recent release of the investigative report, found out that this white Nissan had visited the site of where the body was dumped, which I assume was later is identified as Jennifer's car, which meant that based on the timing of what the information revealed, and I'm assuming from the hotel to the townhouse was at least 30 minutes, but I didn't think they had access into that townhome. They just go to the parking lot, or were they able to access the townhome? Because I thought they were asked to vacate, which is why we were in the hotel room.
so Maybe I misunderstood. You're saying the Nissan.
They said that the report said that they left Kissimmee at 3:18 and went down to St. Cloud and spent 30 minutes and then returned.
Yes. They did.
Okay,
So
I'm assuming they departed from the townhouse?
no.
Oh, okay. I'm just...
No, they left from the hotel.
Oh, okay. 3:18. Okay, so 45 minutes later after checking in. Got it. Does any footage show that they both went or just one?
Just him.
Just him. I asked him about that, and which was would have been on a recorded phone call, why he did that, and he said that he was speculating killing himself. It was interesting, and so then he came back to the hotel, or he...
I don't know if he went back to the hotel there or if he went... No, he had to go back to the hotel because we have the car leaving the hotel going to Northport. And then the car down in Northport as well.
What time did he leave the hotel to go to Northport?
I don't remember exactly.
And I wonder, because Jennifer called me, as I shared with you, I thought around 9:45, to ask me if I knew where Stephan was.
That's when he was on his way back.
Yeah. And I don't know if that was just, she was playing me with that, knowing that he left and went down there, but again, can't figure out why he went down to Northport, because by the time he would have arrived, would have put him at past 6 o'clock, and
Well, we know exactly what time he was. Once again, I don't remember what time it was, but we can put him within less than a mile from your house through dash cam video from Northport PD that was working a crash showed him in the car at that point. So we know exactly what time he was there, but what time he came back, I don't remember what time it was.
okay. Did you ever confirm that he went to the storage unit?
The records from the storage unit were kind of wishy-washy.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it looked like somebody used your access code, but when we talked to him again, they said the dates and times they may have been mistaken. So whether he was there or not, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Weird. Because like I said, and as Debbie shared, she said the dogs went on full alert around 5-something, but anything could have spooked him, but definitely he wasn't in Northport at that time, so it's just curious as to why. I don't know if he tried to come to the house, and maybe the dogs didn't go on full alert, because he again talked about getting access to his guns, and then he could have accessed a couple of other guns he had at the house.
But he had one gun with him. So any reason why he would want his other guns?
He was in possession of the gun when he was in the white Nissan? Because my understanding is the police had confiscated
they took the silver Lincoln, which had the 27th, I believe, when KPD officers went out to talk to Jen and Stephan about the disappearance of Maddie. They checked the cars, and inside Stephan's car was a gun.
Right.
So then, at some point, he takes that gun, puts it inside the house, and when they did the search warrant on the house, that's when they recovered that gun.
Okay.
So whether he went down there to get another gun,
well, because he said I went to get the guns because I was considering killing myself. And so now that makes sense. He would have come down to Northport to try to get into the house to get the guns. And maybe he came up to the house and found out he couldn't get into the house. The dogs didn't go on full alert. And so that makes sense. So that's probably what he was doing. Again, kind of confirming his comment about wanting to get the guns. So he only had the one at the townhouse, which didn't make sense, but now coming down to Northport to do that would make sense. Long way to go for nothing.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything for me?
No, not really. I mean, now it's obviously going to be a process.
Yeah.
A lengthy one, probably.
Yeah.
But
Well, he keeps saying that there's some glimmer of hope, and I'm sitting there going, what glimmer of hope could there be? I mean, you got these horrendous charges of these images and what have you, and then you've got the murder charge. It's like, I don't know what bullet he thinks he's going to dodge.
Right.
We want to keep him as positive as possible, but
Your parents.
Yeah.
So it's natural.
yeah.
Regardless of what he didn't do, or whatever, you still got to treat him as your son.
Yeah.
And
30,000 images. That's amazing. Did you have to view all 30,000?
yes,
How long does it take to do that?
a long time. A long time.
Talk about not unseeing something.
Yeah, it's
I envy your job, and then I don't envy your
right.
job. I know it's fascinating work, but at the same time, you're left with a lifetime of that shit.
Yeah, you see it a lot.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I appreciate your help.
Yes, sir.
in the
Not a
time.
problem at all.
All right, to give me some answer some questions. Again, we're just trying to get some closure to this and figure out how far back did those images go.
2000.
There were images.
Yes.
Any reason to believe that Jennifer was aware or not aware of this going on?
We don't believe she was aware.
I can give you the address if you need it.
Anything prior to that with anybody else?
From Stephan or
Yeah, Stephan, yeah.
not that we know of.
No, probably.
We're clueless how this could have started and why. We asked him, Debbie did, is there any history of, certainly not from us, but from by somebody else, and he said no. So we're clueless as to how this all got started.
That's a big question. A lot of people that do these sorts of things, we never know.
Okay, wow, all right. Well, guys, you've been helpful, appreciate
Yes,
it.
sir.
Again, we're just trying to get
Thanks for
closer.
stopping by.
Well, thank you for entertaining.
And anytime, just give me a call. You have my number. Feel free to call anytime.
Thank you, good seeing you again.
Absolutely.
All right. These canines, I'm just looking at short term of duty. 2 years.
Yeah.
Were they killed of duty? Line of duty? 3 years and 2 years.
He was, yes, shot in the line of duty. This was an accident.
Oh. How many yards you got to do on the force now?
Right now, I think we only have one because they just retired another one.
Shepherd or Malinois?
At Malinois.
Oh, okay. Is that the standard dog these days?
Yeah. Yeah, they're lighter and more agile.
Yeah. All right, guys, appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Have a good day.
All right, thank you.
It is 9:41 a.m. We're going to conclude this interview.
Chris Sterns is still talking about providing plenty of financial support for Stephan. And he even starts talking to the cops that he thinks Jennifer was there during Maddie's death. Perhaps she was responsible for it and definitely involved in the cover-up. So in a way, Chris is still like, wait a minute, he's trying to figure out what did Stephan mean on that phone call when he said, I didn't start it. And he wants to go up there and talk to the cops about it. And he still wants to express his disappointment in Stephan, I guess, as a man, as a son, zero work ethic. Chris said he was at first encouraged by Stephan's work at Disney. But even though Chris knew it would take years for him to, climb the ranks and make 2 or 2.5 times the amount of money he needed to make, I guess, to make a living, according to Chris. But then Chris said later he found out Stephan had called in quite a bit at Disney, which was kind of like his MO. So even though he was proud of Sterns working at Disney, he didn't know he had called in quite a bit. Eventually, like Jennifer said, Stephan quit that job and he would need to take a 6-month period before he could even reapply. But Chris said he was disappointed when Stephan came home. He fell into the same kind of BS pattern that we had been struggling with for years. Disappointed. But then he said something curious, that Stephan still had money. And he's like, where's the money coming from? Stephan told Chris, savings. It's coming from savings. Chris does talk about a criminal enterprise, and he's wondering, were Jen and Stephan involved in some kind of criminal enterprise? Because where's this money coming from? He said other than the inheritance that he got from his father, I don't know was he just being facetious? Was it a literal inheritance, or did he mean just other than what I've been giving him? I don't know what he meant by that. But Chris said other than the inheritance he got from his father, which he blew through pretty quickly, there was never any savings. That's when he's bringing up this idea of a criminal enterprise with Jen. But the detective, now I don't know if the detective is telling the truth or not, if he's just trying to placate him to go away, or if he's trying to lead him down a different primrose path. That's not true. The detective is saying it does not appear to be that way. It doesn't appear that Stephan and Jen were working together, some criminal enterprise. That's when they tell him about finding more than 30,000 images of bad stuff on this hard drive. So at least Chris was being honest, turning over stuff, all this stuff like they talk about in the bankruptcy forms, stuff that Stephan had in their home or even in the storage, I guess, that Chris had. 30,000 images, more than 35,000 images technically. Chris is weird here, but I get it. He's thinking he's a cop, like one of them in a way. He's like, did you have to view all of them? The detective says yes. And Chris says, I envy your job, and then I don't envy your job. He finds cop work fascinating. I believe that's what he means. I just want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Some people are like, oh, why do you say that? I don't know if he necessarily wants to see these images. He just is thinking, I guess, like a cop, catching the bad guys. But he says, talk about not being able to unsee something, because at this point, Chris has kind of convinced himself that Jennifer had literally showed him a photo of the abuse Maddie suffered. But the detective is clearing it up like, no, Jennifer didn't have any of that on her phone. No, we already know. I don't know if Chris is just trying to implicate Jennifer or just really wants her to be implicated. But the detective tells him, we don't believe Jen was aware. So I don't know if that's really true. You know how it came out where it's like, oh yeah, Jen is not going to be arrested. Sometimes cops say that stuff just so people can relax. And then before you know it, boop, one felon Friday, all of a sudden there's an arrest. We don't know. But the cops explained to Chris that the hard drive they found with all those images on it had not been used since 2020. So that's 4 years old. There was some other hard drive, I guess, that had been ripped out. They could not find that hard drive. Maybe it's more current. I don't know. And then Chris says, too bad he wasn't smart enough about the phone. Not that he should have been. He's correcting himself. It's like he keeps sticking his foot in his mouth in a way. It's like he's saying, well, too bad Stephan wasn't smart enough to do that and destroy his phone. But anyway, this is where Chris explains that Stephan told him he was thinking about ending his life. He was claiming he was going to Northport to come get some kind of weapons, some other kind of guns. We still need to hear that jail call, by the way. They gave us one, but it had a wrong date on it. And once I listened to it and saw the file name, I knew the correct date was May 13th. So we still need to hear the April call. There's a lot of stuff we're still trying to get. But the detective told Chris that Stephan had one gun with him in his car. At some point, he took that gun and put it in the house. So he had a gun. It's like the detective is saying, look, if he really wanted to do that, I think he could have done it. Stephan, I believe, is still lying to his parents about why he came to Northport. He doesn't want to tell them, like he just says, oh, just getting my ducks in a row. But he doesn't want to tell them, oh, I was trying to come down there to destroy evidence because I have a lot more. Lord knows. Bankrupt. That's what this whole theme is. Not just financially, not just the financial pressure Stephan put on his parents. All these decades that it really didn't have to be. I don't know what it is, but if he's a smart guy like his mom claims, and he could have done so much better by his parents, and now still sucking them dry, if he goes through this trial, if he's still asking for money to be put on his books, What, they're in their 70s, not working like when they were younger, I'm sure, and just still taking. That's my question. When is this morally bankrupt man going to stop taking from his parents? And who else will have to file bankruptcy? Jennifer, is she working? Is she able to work? How is she making a living? Beyond her disability, is she? These are all questions I have, and I'll just keep on digging. 1 Timothy 3:16, and great, we confess, is the mystery, the hidden truth of godliness. He, Jesus Christ, who was revealed in human flesh, was justified and vindicated in the Spirit, seen by angels, preached among the nations, believed on in the world, taken up in glory. Boy, it's like the best poetry. Thank you so much for watching, and again, stay tuned. I have so many FOIAs, and with Florida, we'll just see what comes down the pipeline. You never know. Hope you had a great Black Friday, and stay tuned for more. Take care.